Hold on to your hats because what I'm about to reveal will make your blood boil and your patriotic heart skip a beat. While you've been going about your daily business, trusting that our government has our backs, Anthony Albanese's Labour Party has been playing Russian roulette with Australian lives, and we just found the loaded chamber. The coalition isn't just angry, they are absolutely livid, and when you hear what's been happening behind closed doors, you'll understand why Sussan Ley and her colleagues are demanding answers that could topple this government. This isn't just another political spat over budget allocations or environmental policies. This is about foreign terrorists operating on Australian soil while our Prime Minister apparently had his head buried in the sand like an ostrich at Bondi Beach. The attacks that rocked Melbourne and Sydney weren't random acts of violence, they were calculated, coordinated strikes directed by Iran's Revolutionary Guard, and the most infuriating part, the coalition saw this coming years ago and Labour ignored every single warning. Picture this nightmare scenario: the 6th of December, Melbourne's Addis Israel synagogue goes up in flames. Not an electrical fault, not an accident, but a deliberate firebombing that could have killed innocent worshippers. Then the 20th of October, Sydney's Lewis Continental Kitchen gets targeted in what authorities now know was part of the same terror network. 2 cities, 2 attacks, one foreign puppet master pulling the strings while Albanese's government played politics with national security. The revelations that have emerged from ASIO's investigation read like a spy thriller, except this isn't fiction. This is the terrifying reality of how foreign governments are now operating inside Australia with apparent impunity. Iran's Revolutionary Guard, a group so dangerous that countries around the world have been blacklisting them faster than you'd block a scammer on Facebook, has been orchestrating attacks on Australian soil while our government dragged its feet on taking decisive action. Here's what will make your blood pressure spike through the roof. The coalition, led by Peter Dutton and James Paterson, have been screaming from the parliamentary rooftops for 2 years about the need to list Iran's Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization. 2 years. That's 730 days of warnings, briefings, and urgent requests that fell on deaf ears while Albanese's team prioritized diplomatic niceness over Australian safety. Shadow Minister for Home Affairs James Paterson isn't mincing words anymore. He's calling this a catastrophic failure of leadership that put Australian lives at risk. When senior opposition figures start using phrases like "people could have been killed," you know we've moved far beyond normal political disagreement into genuine national security crisis territory. But here's where this story becomes absolutely explosive, and why Sussan Ley's response has sent shockwaves through Parliament House. The coalition isn't just criticising Labour's slow response, they are documenting a pattern of willful negligence that borders on criminal incompetence. Internal documents and parliamentary records show that coalition members repeatedly raised concerns about Iranian state-sponsored terrorism, only to be dismissed by Labour as fearmongering and playing politics with national security. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard isn't some amateur terrorist cell operating out of a garage. This is a sophisticated military and intelligence organization with billions of dollars in resources and decades of experience in international terrorism. They've been behind attacks in dozens of countries, orchestrated assassinations, funded proxy wars, and now they've brought their terror campaign to Australian soil while our government apparently thought strongly worded diplomatic statements would keep us safe. What makes this situation even more infuriating is how preventable it all was. Countries like the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom designated Iran's Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization years ago. They saw the threat, they took action, and they protected their citizens. Meanwhile, Australia's Labour government was still considering and reviewing and consulting while Iranian operatives were literally planning attacks in our major cities. The Addis Israel synagogue attack wasn't just property damage, it was an assault on Australia's Jewish community and a test of our resolve against international terrorism. The fact that this attack was successful, that the perpetrators felt confident enough to strike at a religious institution in broad daylight, sends a chilling message about how emboldened foreign terrorists have become under Labour's watch. Lewis Continental Kitchen in Sydney represents something even more sinister: the targeting of ordinary Australian businesses by foreign terror networks. This wasn't about religious or political symbolism, this was about demonstrating that Iran's Revolutionary Guard could strike anywhere, anytime, at any target they chose. The psychological impact of these attacks extends far beyond the immediate victims to every Australian who now has to wonder if their local cafe, synagogue, or community centre could be next. James Paterson's accusations aren't just political theatre, they are backed by a mountain of evidence showing that Labour had multiple opportunities to prevent these attacks but chose bureaucratic caution over decisive action. Parliamentary records show coalition members raising specific concerns about Iranian Revolutionary Guard activities in Australia, requesting enhanced security measures, and demanding the terrorist listing that could have triggered enhanced surveillance and prevention capabilities. The coalition's "we told you so" moment would be satisfying political vindication if it weren't for the fact that real Australians paid the price for Labour's inaction. When Peter Dutton and his team warned about Iranian state-sponsored terrorism, they weren't playing political games, they were trying to prevent exactly the kind of attacks that have now materialized on Australian soil. Sussan Ley's leadership in demanding accountability isn't just about opposition politics, it's about fundamental questions of competence and priorities that go to the heart of what we expect from our government. When coalition members talk about Labour's "too little, too late" response, they are highlighting a pattern of reactive governance that puts Australian lives at risk while terrorists plan their next moves. The delayed listing of Iran's Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization isn't just an administrative oversight, it's a symbol of everything wrong with Labour's approach to national security. While other countries were taking decisive action to protect their citizens, Australia was apparently more concerned about diplomatic sensitivities than the safety of synagogues and restaurants. ASIO's revelation that these attacks were coordinated and directed by Iranian government entities should trigger a complete review of how Australia identifies and responds to state-sponsored terrorism. The fact that a foreign government felt comfortable orchestrating attacks on Australian soil suggests that our deterrent capabilities have been fundamentally compromised by political indecision and bureaucratic delays. The coalition's anger isn't just about past failures, it's about the ongoing vulnerability these failures have created. Every day that Iran's Revolutionary Guard remained unlisted as a terrorist organization was another day they could operate with relative impunity, recruiting operatives, planning attacks, and building the infrastructure needed for future operations. What makes this situation particularly galling for coalition members is how predictable it all was. Intelligence reports, international precedents, and basic common sense all pointed toward the need for stronger measures against Iranian state terrorism. Yet Labour's response was to study the issue, consult stakeholders, and consider options while terrorists were literally lighting fires in Australian cities. The parliamentary exchanges that followed ASIO's revelations were absolutely brutal, with coalition members systematically dismantling Labour's excuses and justifications. When government ministers tried to defend their delayed response as measured and considered, opposition members pointed out that the only thing being measured was the distance between Iranian terrorist planning and Australian government action, and that distance was far too great. James Patterson's forensic analysis of Labour's failures reads like an indictment of everything wrong with modern political decision-making. Instead of clear-eyed threat assessment and decisive action, we got committee meetings, stakeholder consultations, and diplomatic hand-wringing while foreign terrorists operated freely in our major cities. The human cost of these policy failures can't be measured just in property damage or even potential casualties. It's about the erosion of confidence in our government's ability to keep Australians safe from evolving international threats. When religious communities and business owners have to worry about foreign government terrorism, something fundamental has broken down in our security arrangements. Coalition members are now demanding a complete review of how Australia identifies, assesses, and responds to state-sponsored terrorism threats. This isn't just about Iran, it's about establishing clear criteria and rapid response mechanisms that can protect Australian communities from any foreign government that decides to export its conflicts to our shores. The political implications of these revelations extend far beyond current parliamentary dynamics. Australian voters are now confronted with clear evidence that Labour's cautious approach to national security had real consequences for real people in real communities. This isn't abstract policy debate, this is about protecting the local synagogue, the neighbourhood restaurant, and the community centres where Australians gather. Sussan Ley and her coalition colleagues aren't just scoring political points, they are highlighting fundamental questions about government priorities and competence that will resonate with voters who expect their elected representatives to put Australian safety above diplomatic convenience. The contrast between coalition warnings and Labour inaction provides a clear narrative about which party takes national security threats seriously. The international implications are equally serious. Australia's delayed response to Iranian terrorism sends a signal to other hostile governments that our deterrent capabilities are compromised by political indecision. When countries like Iran believe they can orchestrate attacks on Australian soil without immediate, severe consequences, it invites further aggression from other state actors. This story isn't over, it's just beginning. The Coalition's comprehensive documentation of labels failures provides the foundation for ongoing accountability measures that will keep these issues in the public spotlight for months to come. Every parliamentary sitting, every estimate hearing, and every media opportunity will be another chance to highlight how preventable these attacks were and how many warnings were ignored. If you thought tonight's story was wild, trust me, what happens next will blow your mind. So don't stop now. Click on the video right here on your screen to continue the chaos, the drama, and the inside scoop only we deliver. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and join the Australian News CC family where the real stories come to life. See you in the next one.